In Primitive War, there's a dinosaur that makes the big one from Jurassic Park seem like a turkey in comparison. This Utahraptor, who earned the name Cyclops, after the dinosaur decided to live on after a combat knife was shoved into its eye socket. Becoming half-blind didn't weaken the alpha predator though, it only made him more angry. In this video, we're going to go in-depth on the known lore and stats of Cyclops from Primitive War. And if this video gets 2,000 likes, I'll keep making more Primitive War content, so see what you fans can do to get a better idea of how imposing Cyclops is. Let's go to the real world real fast and mention the notable features of the Utahraptor. Its height was a little taller than the average human male, around 6 feet or 2 meters give or take. Its length was over 20 feet on average, 7 meters. And it weighed in at around 1,000 pounds or 500 kilos. We all know the velociraptor claws made famous by Jurassic Park. And Utahraptor shared this sickle claw, except this time it was nearly a foot long. 10 inches give or take. Long enough to impale and come out the other side of most humans. Their bodies were more dense and muscular than other more famous raptors, and even though there hasn't been any evidence found on a Utahraptor specimen so far to suggest they had feathers, it's believed that they, like others of their family line, were probably covered in them. In some way or another, as far as we can tell at least. Back to Primitive War. Most of the real-world science on the Utahraptors roll over to this version in Primitive War. Except the ones in the book appear to be just a little taller in the hopes of having them tower over their human prey. It's just more scary that way for fiction. Cyclops was accompanied by 2 packmates, Sobek and Zypotek. These make up the 3 individuals that you got to see in the trailer, and in this shot you can really feel how deadly and ferocious these hunters are. In reality, Utahraptors were simply animals doing, well, Dr. Grant says it best.
Kind of just do what they do.
In Primitive War, much of their actions can ultimately be placed on the fact that they are animals looking to survive. But of course, in the eyes of the character in the story, they come across much more like serial killers. Stalking them, torturing them, going the extra mile that a real-life animal probably wouldn't go. These 3 raptors, specifically Cyclops, refuse to quit, coming back to failed hunts again and again till they get their kill. Cyclops is both brains and brawn, excelling in tracking prey and learning from his past experiences, driven by an extreme sense of survival and urge to keep his pack safe and fed. In this mission, Cyclops would brutalize his prey in ways that are shocking and disturbing. A lot of brutal and intense events occur surrounding Cyclops and his pack, so let's dive into the lore and story. Let's start at the top. How did Cyclops and all the dinosaurs make it into the jungles of Vietnam? Spoiler warning here. During World War II, all sorts of wild technologies were in development in the hopes to help their side come out on top. This is where, in Primitive War's story, the device known as the Particle Collider came to be. With its design not being finished until after the war though, the collider wasn't able to be fully built until decades later, now under control by the Russians. To make sure the Americans and other nations of the world didn't find out, they constructed this gigantic machine in the middle of the jungle. Now, explaining the collider and what it has to do with Cyclops and the dinosaurs of Primitive War is another story in itself, but to keep it simple, the device when improperly used had the capability to rip a wormhole in time, allowing the dinosaurs to walk right through like a doorway. A year after the collider had first brought back dinosaurs from the dead, the Americans had found out that something fishy was happening in the jungle, and sent Green Berets to operate a secret mission and find out what the Russians were up to. When the special forces arrived, they didn't find the collider, but they did find Cyclops and his pack. None of the Green Berets survived. Weeks passed, and at that point it was suspected that these soldiers were captured or killed in combat by other human forces. So the stars of Primitive War, Vulture Squad, were called into the game. Following the tracks left by the Green Berets, Vulture Squad, led by Ryan Baker, first came in contact with one of the Utahraptors. Luckily, his boot took most of the brunt of the attack, and Vulture Squad was able to drive the beast off with gunfire. But this attack was just testing the waters. The next day, Cyclops would appear. Right after a group of Deinonychus had attacked Vulture Squad and dragged off one of their members, Gerald Keyes, Cyclops, like modern-day animals, jumped in to steal the smaller raptor's meal. Gerald Keyes was eviscerated alive this horrible night in the jungles of Vietnam. While his innards were stretched out, he couldn't call for help because Cyclops, after a year of hunting humans, had learned that if he bites the head and face of one, that it became harder for them to call out for help. Once you got past their weapons, humans were easy prey. But the soldier didn't go out without a fight. In one last adrenaline surge, Gerald pulled his combat knife and stabbed Cyclops in the thick feathered chest. This caused the dinosaur to jump up in a panic, alerting Vulture Squad of their location. With his cover blown, Cyclops attempted to flee but not without his prey. Dragging the human made him slow though, and it stifled his awareness. Out of nowhere, Vulture Squad member Logan Stovall flung his body at Cyclops, tackling the raptor. And with this advantage, he drove his knife into the eye socket of Cyclops. The raptor dropped its prey and ran off in a blaze of gunfire, somehow still alive with a knife lodged into his skull. The blade missed all vital parts of his brain, so the Utahraptor would survive and had now earned his name. Gerald was somehow still alive, and Vulture Squad quickly rushed to the nearest sign of safety, which just so happened to be the compound in which the collider was located. But everyone was dead, killed off by a prior Tyrannosaur attack. Attempting to heal Gerald's wounds, Vulture Squad held up in a station in the compound as Cyclops and his pack attempted to lure them out, using diversionary tactics to catch the humans off guard. As the raptors pressed their attack, the humans managed to sneak off and rush towards the escape helicopter's location. Just as they thought they were about to get away, Cyclops and his pack caught up to them, grabbing Gerald's lower half. What happened next was horrible. The man's body with his massive abdominal wound was weakened, and as the dinosaurs and Vulture Squad pulled at his body, it began to rip in half. Knowing this was Gerald's end, Logan was forced to shoot his friend so his pain would be no more. And then they let the raptor pack drag off his lifeless corpse, so that the remaining members of the squad could escape. After some events and time passes in the story, the remaining members of Vulture Squad decide to return to the compound to destroy the now known to bring dinosaurs into the modern world particle collider. With a Black Ops team by their side, things seemed promising. But the Utahraptor pack was still hungry. They had mouths to feed back at their nest, and the humans were abundant. They had returned to the compound to scavenge the corpses left there, and were pleased when fresh meat also showed up. The raptor pack killed the Black Ops team to feed their young, but Cyclops had other plans. This animal was in extreme pain, making him even more deadly. But in this moment, surprisingly, Cyclops chose vengeance over survival. Something completely out of the blue for an animal. He goes straight for squad leader Baker, and they have a 1v1 battle on top of the collider. Cyclops leapt onto Ryan, driving him to the floor, and with his 10-inch claws, ripped at the man's midsection. Cyclops had a thing for doing this to his prey, like he enjoyed seeing them suffer so horribly before death. But Ryan was also driven by pain and vengeance for his lost team members, and used the last bit of his strength to force the blade shoved in Cyclops' eye even further, reaching the raptor's brain and killing him. Cyclops' body fell on top of Ryan's, and as he slowly bled out, the explosives placed around the collider detonated. Ryan, Cyclops, and the particle collider went up in a blaze of fire. The Utahraptor as a species is a unique case for a dinosaur movie villain due to their extreme size. The raptors of Jurassic Park are much more in line with the Utahraptors than velociraptors, but even then, they're still not as imposing as the real thing, and that's why they work so well as threats in Primitive War's story. I want to thank the author of Primitive War, Ethan, and his crew of artists for their efforts and amazing work, as well as the director for the movie, Luke, for once again letting us use the footage freely, and making something that appears to be so faithful to this awesome story that is Primitive War. And lastly, I can't forget you guys, thank you all for watching. This has been Jacob. Subscribe if you like this sort of stuff, and I'll see you in the next one.